In 2012, I was 3 days into the first ever Coast to Coast Expedition Challenge, a 240-mile self-sustained, human-powered race featuring small, non-motorized sailboats and paddlecraft. It was part of the Calusa Blueway Paddling Festival, with proceeds going to CROW, the Clinic for the Rehabilitation of Wildlife. I was the only entry. This was part of a larger international kayak racing event happening in Virginia Key, Florida, later to be called the Black Belt Paddlers Challenge. Having journeyed from Sanibel Island, Florida, to the Florida Keys via Florida Bay, into Buttonwood Sound, past Key Largo, exalted in song by many, including Kokomo. By the Beach Boys, and it had taken me 30 minutes to find the passage to Grouper Creek, even though I had a handheld GPS. The entrance to the creek is a wall of mangroves. I was at most 100 feet from the opening when I turned the wrong way. I only found it when a boat came motoring out of the mangroves. Wound my way into Tarpon Basin and the open waters of Blackwater Sound. I was a bit cold and hungry at this point, as the sun was going down, so at the entrance of Jewfish Creek, I stopped at the Tiki Bar. But I just couldn't get warm. I wanted to lay down, but just couldn't find a spot. Got back into the kayak and into Barnes Sound. I was headed to Main Key, a place I knew I could set up camp and have a good night's sleep. The sound was a bit lumpy, and around 11 p.m. the cable to my rudder housing got tangled, and I started to go in uncontrolled circle. My shore contact was my wife, Kathleen, who would periodically check on me through Spot, a global positioning service that shows location 24 hours a day, real time. She told me later how concerned she was seeing me at 11 p.m. and a big sound going in circles. I was tired, cold, and hungry, so I was slow to figure out what was happening. I got out of my kayak, straddled the boat facing the stern, slowly worked my way aft. The back part of the boat was now underwater as I untangled the rudder cable. I reached Main Key in much needed sleep around 1 p.m. But as I slowly traveled right next to the key to find the little beach where I could pull up, I could see no bare sand. My headlamp showing me nothing but mangroves. Later, I found out the little beach was just behind some mangroves, and I had passed it 3 times, but being tired, cold, and hungry, I saw nothing. But I had to stop and sleep. So I anchored just a few feet off of Main Key, sitting up in my kayak, and proceeded to shiver the rest of the night. There really is something to the hope of dawn. I got a little warmer, but still no sleep. Set my little sail and off to find any stretch of sand to lay on and sleep. I wrap myself in one of the emergency blankets as I head to Card Sound, so tired, still cold, and having only eaten a few power bars. But the miles go by and nothing but walls of mangroves until I see a little sandy beach near some buildings way off in the distance. I was desperate at this point. As I got closer, I could see some bigger yachts at the dock, but in my mind, this was a maritime emergency which overrules trespassing. I pulled up onto the beach with condos in front of me and docked with yachts to my left. I must have looked like a maritime homeless man, wrapped in an emergency blanket, haggard from 4 days of kayak sailing and close to 30 hours of no sleep. I see some movement on the dock and stagger in that direction when I'm intercepted by a man who I later learned was Tony Rodriguez, the harbor master. I tell him I've come from Sanibel, tell him my story. He's very kind, as he took me to his harbor master office, passing 50, 60, 70-foot yachts dock at his harbor. When I get off the phone, he says he will help me, but not now, and leads me to a building. It's the laundry. Tells me to wait here for him until he comes back. Of course, little did I know, this was the biggest day of the year at the Ocean Reef Key Largo Resort and Yacht Club, for this was the once-a-year black tie regalia. I was so tired it hadn't registered when off in the distance I could see some very well-dressed people. The laundry room was so warm and inviting. I took an ironing board off the wall, laid down on it, and fell asleep within seconds. Unknown to me, the Expedition Race Committee had become concerned for my safety and had contacted the North Key Largo Fire Department to find me and check on my health. After a few short hours of sleep, I wake up to two large firemen towering over me. So I get up, took out my navigation chart, and proceeded to tell them where I've come from and that I'm doing much better now that I've had some warm sleep. They leave, giving me a good bill of health, and I fall back asleep. I'm not sure for how long when the harbor master arrives, leading me like a little boy to his office at the dock. While I had been asleep, he had one of his crew take my kayak and hide it as far away from the party as you can get, into the working bowels of the harbor. It was dark, and I asked him the closest stretch of beach where I could set up my tent. Without missing a beat, he said I could sleep in his office and leave in the morning. Kinder words I've never heard. He then pointed to a plate of burger and fries and said it was leftovers and I could help myself. Looking back, I don't think they were leftovers. He had gotten that meal from the kitchen for me. As you can imagine, the security in this place was intense. He informed me that he had talked to all the security staff to let them know the maritime homeless man would be spending the night in his office and would be taking off in the morning. He pointed to where my kayak was and then bid me good night. I inhaled the burger and fries as if it were my first meal in days, which in fact it was. His leather sofa was and still is the most comfortable place I have ever slept. I was up and out before first light, not wanting to be any more of a burden to him. Kayaks sailed Biscayne Bay to the finish line and Virginia Key. I can't imagine how busy the harbor master must have been on that day, taking care of so many yachts, the big black tie dinner, and yet he took time to help me. I'm grateful to Tony Rodriguez to this day. On December 3rd, 2026, 14 years after the whole affair, I called the harbor master's office, and yes, Tony is still there. And even though for him this was a very vague memory, he did remember, and I was able to thank him once again.